in the post later, so you can just grab that link. What I'm trying to do, because in my process of recovery and in my process of working with clients over the years, I found that a lot of resources seem to be missing, and a lot of the approach to recovery that I ran into and the approach to recovery that my clients were running into, just the approach wasn't solving their problems. And I don't like having holes in my game. I don't like not having the steps in place to help people. So I just did a lot of my own digging, and fortunately found a whole lot of really smart people who've helped me out. And so we all stand on other shoulders. And so that's what I want to do, is I want to bring some of that information to you today. Like I said, if you want to hop in my group, we got hundreds of resources to help you out. Herniated disc support group, another one, great resources. Cervical radiculopathy, if your problem is in your neck, it's another fantastic group. I do want to say what I'm not going to do today, because sometimes people hop on these, and I get the wish, right? I get the wish. If you're hurting, if you are suffering right now, you want to be out of pain, and you want something to be like the button or the switch, or the magic pill, literally, some people look for to try and get rid of your pain. And hey, I want to help you do that. Absolutely, that's what I'm here to try and help you do. And further than that, I want to help you not just eliminate this pain, but do it in a way so that that goal that's beyond your pain, the lifestyle that you want, you can get to that without falling back into pain, right? So once we recover from injury, our greatest risk is re-injury. And we actually have a much higher risk of re-injury after something like that. So what I want to do is share these principles of recovery that I've learned over the last, like I said, 35 years, probably more research than that, but professionally working 35 years, helping with disc and nerve issues. And so in doing this, I'm presenting information, and hopefully this information is helpful to you. If you feel like we get to the end of this and you get this information and you're still wondering what to do with it, or you're not sure how to apply it, reach out. Okay, all you got to do is, wherever you're catching this, whether it's in my profile or in my group or in the herniated disc group, where this will be dropped eventually, you guys can just comment support. It works best if you tag me, and tagging me works best if we're friends. So I am inviting you, if you're not a friend yet, go ahead and reach out, and let's get connected. So hey, let's get busy. What we're going over today is how to avoid permanent nerve damage. And so I want to make sure you understand what you're going to learn today. And if you don't yet, if you're suffering from some kind of a disc issue or nerve issue, and you don't have a piece of paper and a pen, go ahead and grab a piece of paper and a pen. If you don't want to take that time right now and you're worried you're going to miss something, I get it. This will be hosted on my profile. I'll also drop it in some of these other groups so that it's available to you. But if you can grab a pen and paper, grab it. So what we're going to cover, first, we need to know, if we're trying to avoid permanent nerve damage, we need to know what are the red flags, right? What are the things that let us know that the nerves are being affected and that the nerves might be at risk. Hey, Carrie, great to see you. The other thing that we want to cover, so I find that, the way I look at my role when I'm helping people, either in these trainings or when I'm actually working with clients one-on-one, is if I can find something small that gives you leverage, it's easier to commit to, and it's easier to start to build that foundation, start to build that confidence, and start to give you a real anchor in recovery. So I'm going to give you just a very simple rule that you need to follow to avoid this risk of permanent nerve damage. And then I'm also going to talk briefly about a couple of the ways that I use. Now, there's a lot of different ways to apply these strategies, but a couple of the strategies I've used for myself and that my clients have used to help them avoid, not just avoid nerve damage, but to actually help the nerves, help to support the nerves in their recovery. And so we'll go over that. Again, if you're listening, if any of this, like you hit a spot and you're like, I'm lost, or I don't know what's going on, just comment support. We'll have a chat. I'll catch up to you on Messenger. We'll have a chat and I'll get you directed. If this isn't the resource for you, I'll get you directed to that. If there's something about this one you need to know more about, I'll tell you more about that. So let's get busy though. All right. You guys are here to learn something. You're not here to hang out and say hi to Jeff, right? And I thank you for saying hi. And yes, Pamela, you found me. Great. I'm so happy you're here. So I said that the things you're going to learn, okay, the things we're going to cover, biggest red flags, telling you that permanent nerve damage might be a risk, a simple rule to follow so that thematically, you know you're doing the right thing to help your nerves to recover and avoid that risk, right? And then I'm going to talk about 2 strategies, the simple strategies I use to help people not just avoid the nerve damage, but start to find a way towards recovery. Okay, so red flags, all right? And let's talk about the red flags. So again, I'm not a doctor. I do seek out, spend lots of time with, and if you saw my bookshelf and everything that I do here, I don't like having holes in my process of working people forward. And so in my research and in my experience, the things that can be most concerning, if you're concerned that you're suffering nerve damage, things that most people would say, most doctors that I talk to say, these are reasons to call an emergency, not like your doctor, but to call like the ER, right? To get some emergency assistance. And so one of those things would be a sudden paralysis. If you experienced a sudden paralysis, that's time to call for the ambulance, okay? If you experience a sudden loss of strength, like a dramatic loss of strength in a limb or a couple of limbs, especially if it's two sides all at once, good time to make that call. Sudden incontinence. So if you suddenly lose control of your bladder, not that you like kind of tinkle yourself, but like that you suddenly completely lost control of your bladder or your bowels, that's a time to call for emergency assistance. And then if you suddenly like completely lose sensation, like an arm suddenly goes numb and it doesn't seem to be recovering, or like a leg, you have this sudden numbness or loss of sensation. It could be in other places of your body. These are times to go ahead and call an emergency medical professional and get their input, because it may be that you need a ride at that point in time. So those are the biggies, right? Those are the ones that people are kind of scared of, and I've been having these conversations for years and years. I'm not trying to scare you, and this is meant to be informative, and so I need to share all the information. So those are the biggies. If one of those happens to you, then that's a time to call emergency medical provider and get some assistance. So let's move on to the things that are not quite as serious, but also let you know that, hey, there's something going on. More than likely, something's going on with your nervous system. You want to pay attention to it, and you probably want to seek some kind of guidance to avoid having this progress. Okay, and we'll get into some themes about whether things are worsening or improving, right? Because that does matter. So other signs can be weakness. If you feel like a loss of strength, like you're feeling some weakness, it's not super clear to you, but your hand doesn't quite feel like the grip is the way it was. Pins and needles, that's a really common sensation people have when a nerve is being affected. Burning is a sensation people can have when a nerve is being affected. Sometimes people feel shocks. I remember I suffered a cervical injury, and I went to ride my bicycle. Every time I went over a bump, I got this jolt that would just shock down my arm. And I had to, for that time, I had to stop riding a bicycle because I couldn't hold on to the grips. So if any of this sounds familiar to you, if any of that, sounds like something, that you're worried about or whatever, we're kind of a group here, right? We got this little family. So, go ahead and comment, relate. If any of these concerns or any of these things relate to you, go ahead and comment, relate for me. So another thing that can happen, it tends to be a longer term result, something that people run into is what's called atrophy. And that's where a muscle is losing size or losing tone. And what I mean by that is that the muscle maybe used to feel kind of firm, but it's starting to feel mushy. And you're using it, and you don't think that it should be losing that, right? Like if you're in a cast for a while, when you come out of a cast, your muscles are going to be mushy. It's just kind of how it goes. But if you're using your body and you're noticing that this muscle rise or the tone is going away, it could be an indicator that something's going on with the nerve. Severe cramping is something that people run into with muscles and unexplained, right? Like if you did a lot of hiking yesterday and you maybe weren't as hydrated and you wake up in the middle of the night with a cramp in your calf, like that could just be something related to nutrition and fitness. But if you have this severe cramping, especially that hangs around and again is unexplained. We've already talked about numbness and tingling, but they're just other words that people use for symptoms that show that your nervous system may be being affected. It could also point to like circulatory issues, but it's something to pay attention to. So another like kind of functional thing that can show up is what's called worsening postural awareness. And so early signs for some neurodegenerative problems are like tripping or like slurring speech, things like that. But like with your hands, like you're dropping things, right? So you're tripping, you're dropping things like this, and that seems out of turn, like it's not kind of how you are, or it's not because you were trying to balance on a Bosu ball while you were doing something, right? It seems out of turn. Then that's something that could indicate that you have something affecting your nervous system. And so when we talk about the nervous system, for some of you, this will be review. For some of you, it's just not clear what we're talking about. And so let's give that, just a minute here. And so when we're talking about the nervous system, essentially we're talking about in your head is your brain, right? Brain's a big deal. We love it. We need it. It does wonderful things for us. And the brain actually, in a sense, the nerves then extend down through your spinal column and what's called the spinal cord. And the cord goes all the way down to a little below like mid-chest, and it starts to branch off and form these nerves that go into our lower body. And so the spinal cord has these branches so it's kind of like an upside down tree, or you could think of it like roots. It has these branches that kind of branch off of the spinal cord and into nerves. And these nerves go out into our body, and these nerves help us to feel things. These nerves help us to do things. And so if we're having issue at the brain level, we can have like the whole system having a problem. If we're having an issue at the cord level, similarly, we can have sort of a whole system thing. But as these nerves branch off, it's called a nerve root, okay? I said roots. So it's like a nerve root. As it branches off, if there's something happening at that nerve root, it tends to be more specific to the tissues and the parts of your body that nerve extends towards, okay? So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the nervous system. And so the theme, going back to these symptoms, when we go back to these symptoms and we talk about, whether it's concerning or not. So a general theme is if it's worsening, it's something to really tune into and again, make contact with your health provider, your medical professional. If it's improving, hey, that's great. And if you got a doc, it's a good thing to go ahead and get a message to your doc and let them know that, I'm not saying him, let them know that you're having some kind of issues. And so just in case they feel like it might connect with something else that's going on with you, right? So that's what docs are really good at. They look at all the systems of the body and how they interrelate. And so even if you're having something that may seem kind of minor, it's a good idea to let your doc know. So because your doc can know if it might connect to something else. So I'm here to try and keep you safe, all right? So the theme here is this worsening or improving, right? So if it's worsening, we definitely want to let people know. And if you've already let your doctor know that you're having an issue and you notice it's worsening, then it's good to get another message to your doctor and let your doctor or medical professional know that it's worsening. Are we doing good? Are people getting some benefit? Do you feel like you're getting some benefit here? Go ahead and comment with the word benefit. It doesn't matter if you're listening now or this is, you're listening to this in the future. Go ahead and get some comments going, because the comments help me know if I'm delivering something that is worth anything to you. All right. Okay. So So what's going to happen, right? If you contact your doctor, medical professional, more than likely you're going to have what's called a neurological consultation. And that may involve some tests, right? There's a bunch of in-office nerve tests. Great, thanks, Beth. Beth's with me. There's some in-office nerve tests that they can look at, like, do you have sensation? They test strength. There's things like that go on. If you've had those, right, you can comment tests, right? If you've had some of these tests. So another test that they'll do is called a nerve conduction study. And people get scared of the nerve conduction study. Like that one, they're just measuring like, if the nerve is pushing the information that needs to get there or receiving the information that needs to come back. So they're just testing, is that nerve functioning? And then they might test your muscles. They might now a lot of people get scared of this. I've had it done. It's annoying and it can make you a little bit sore, but they stick these needles in. They're really good at sticking them in where they don't hurt. They stick these needles in to try and get your muscles agitated a little bit and make sure your muscles are responding. Make sure that you can use your muscles properly. Okay, so this is kind of a way to map the body, and that helps to map where the problem might be. Okay, another thing you might run into, oh gosh, yeah. I'm going to stop for just a second, because what happens when something like this happens, right? So Carrie posted that she keeps asking for these different tests, and all she's getting is medicines. So unfortunately, not all physicians are created equally. Not all healthcare providers are created equally, and not all systems are set up in a way to really listen. And so if you feel like you're not being listened to, first step, I think, is to reach out and communicate, right? So to try and, clearly get your message across. And I'm not saying that you haven't, okay? But I'm just saying, like, what steps make sense. And if you feel like you're communicating and you're not being heard, I can only tell you what I do in those circumstances. I go tap on another's shoulder. I go and try, and I'm not trying to look for the answer that I want. I'm trying to look for somebody to listen to what it is I'm saying and then communicate back to me that they've heard what it is I'm saying, right? So if I'm hearing that they're hearing what it is I'm saying, and from that information, it connects to X, Y, and Z, then I start to feel a lot better about the provider that I'm speaking to. If I'm just because I have been in the office and I'll communicate what I'm saying, and then I'm told something different. And I say, wait, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this. And then I get this back again. No, that's not what I'm saying. I've been yelled at. I'm literally, and it's, it's funny because the nurses that were outside, they're kind of like pacing by the door. So if you don't feel like you're being heard, so then what did I do? I tried to continue down that route and follow that path. And then I went ahead and started making some calls and reaching out and seeing if there was somebody, because it just wasn't a good fit. We weren't a good fit. She was mad at me. She thought I wasn't listening to her, but I was listening. We just, I don't know what it was. We weren't communicating well. And so that's a problem, right? So it's a good time to go ahead and start checking around. Okay, so, and I see that we got more people on here. Super happy to see you, Elena. Thanks for hopping in. I don't know, was that helpful at all? That was like a little sidebar. Hopefully that was helpful. You can kind of hit, give me a like or you can comment. You can say helpful. And so just to backtrack for a second, we were talking about the red flags that tell you that permanent nerve damage, we might be heading towards that. And all that means is things that indicate that your nervous system may be getting affected. Okay, and so that's what we were talking about, that list that we were talking about. If you missed it, don't worry, this will still be here. You can go back and watch. All right, so I did say that I try to make things as simple as possible for people. I try to find, especially when I'm working with people, doing these trainings or coaching somebody, an actual client, I try to find I call it low-hanging fruit. Okay, so what that means is low-hanging fruit is the fruit that's ripe, it's ready, and it's right in front of you. You don't have to climb up the tree, right? So it's low risk. Okay, so I try and find something that's low risk and typically effective, and then that's what we test it. Okay, so whenever you're doing something new that you haven't done before, you're testing it. Okay, you can't be positive that it's going to work. That's why they call it practicing medicine, right? And so when I'm working with clients, I have a very specific method that we test, because we want to be scientific. We want to say, okay, before, this is what was going on, and this is how we describe it. This is what we're going to test, the skill that I'm going to have you do, and then we want to see, did that have the effect we were looking for? Or to what degree did that have the effect that we're looking for, right? Because now that we know the degree, we know, aha, okay, so this is helpful, and it's helpful to this degree. Now the next thing to test is, it didn't get us all the way there, but let's do a little bit, let's try more of the same. Does that get us there? Okay. Most of the time that one skill doesn't do it, but sometimes it does for people. I have people in the group who comment, they test a skill out, and one and done, it takes care of them. So awesome. Okay, so what's the simple rule? Okay, so let's go back to that worsening versus improving. Okay, so in terms of what's happening in your body, the simple rule is, if it's worsening, then that's where you communicate more to your health provider, to your coach or whatever, right? You communicate more. If it's improving, then it doesn't mean you don't have to communicate, but that's a better sign, right? If things are improving, that's a good thing. Now, what do you do? Okay, what is it that you do to help that happen? Okay, and so when I'm working with clients, I simply call this the unload. Okay, the unload, because essentially what we're doing is we're using sort of a strategic and targeted method to unload the force that's irritating that nerve. And so there's several different kinds of forces that can irritate a nerve. Okay, it could be right from the disc. Okay, so you have a bulging disc or herniated disc, and on imaging you see that disc is like pushing on that nerve. And here's the thing, when nerves get pushed on, it's not just the nerve itself that's getting pushed on, the circulatory system. Sorry, I just had some noise start here. Hopefully that's not bothering anybody. Can you still hear me? Somebody like shoot me a thumbs up or something, make sure that you can still hear me okay. Let me see. I'm on the wrong spot to see that. Okay. Okay. Looks like you guys can still hear me okay, so I want to continue. All right, so you can push on the nerve, and nerves are dynamic. Yes, thank you, Elena. Nerves are dynamic. Nerves can handle some forces. Okay, and thank you, Carrie. Beth, everybody's all right. Nerves can handle some forces, but you know what nerves have that can't handle a whole lot of force? They have blood vessels. Okay, so they have arteries and veins. Okay, so arteries are bringing blood to it, bringing the nourishment. So nerves are a tissue, they need nourishment. Okay, and the veins are carrying away waste and carrying away leftovers. All right, so when we talk about those two structures, the vein is the most vulnerable. So the vein, just very slight pressure, you think about the back of your hand, right? If you put very slight pressure on the vein, it occludes, it backs up. Right? So the stuff trying to flow through the vein can no longer flow through it. And if that's a consistent closing of that vein, then what happens is this waste builds up, and the vein itself starts to have problems. And the vein can actually cause the nerve to have problems. So this is a situation where it doesn't make sense, right? The pressure on the nerve, or it doesn't look like this pressure or this problem can be causing this pain or this symptom that the person's experiencing. But if we unload that, if we strategically remove force through posture, most typically it's by posturing your body in a certain way and supporting your body in a certain way. Okay, so I can cause as the nerves, so we have the brain, the cord, and then the nerve roots exiting. So they're exiting my vertebra, and as they exit the vertebra, they go through little holes called foramen, and I can actually position my body. So I'm opening the foramina over here. I'm actually closing the ones over here. Now, when we start to bring things together, right? So if I tuck my chin, I'm opening the foramen. If I extend my neck, I'm closing the foramen. So this is where it gets this is where we can be strategic. I just want to give you some idea of how we use strategy to do this unload. So if I want to open the nerve root over here, but I don't want to close the nerve root over here, I can flex my neck, which opens the nerve, the foramen for the nerve root. And then I can flex my neck this way. And so this one gets double opening, right? This one gets opening from the flexion and from the leaning away, okay? And so it gets double opening. This one, we opened it and then we lean towards it. So maybe we bring it back. So this one kind of basically comes back to zero, okay, where it was before. So that's what I mean by applying strategies to do unloads. Now, the unload may have to happen at the thoracic outlet, okay? Or, so nerves, it's compression is a problem, okay? So thoracic outlet or nerve root at the foramen, we might have compression on the nerve, but also tension can be a problem. So a nerve that is irritated is irritable. So if we have tension, like, so the nerve as it exits my neck here goes down into my shoulder through that thoracic outlet. If my shoulder, like, so there's some injuries that cause your shoulder to drop. Well, now there's this consistent tension on the nerves as they come down and then get into that thoracic outlet. And they can also then get some compression because of this posture. I can end up getting some compression. And so if we support the body, we get the body in a supported position, and in a sense I can bring the neck towards that, and I can bring the shoulder towards the neck, and now I've shortened the space. Now I've unloaded that tension. I don't have that tension anymore. So again, that's how we can use strategy. And again, if you want to know more about this, if you want to have a quick conversation, or if this is kind of going over your head, but you know you need help, go ahead and comment support. I'll reach out. We can have a conversation. Okay, so I said that this unload is this simple way to avoid that risk of permanent nerve damage, right? So if we can take away the forces that are causing the problem, right? So this is an image I like to use a lot, right? If I'm standing and I'm holding my neck and I'm squeezing against the two arteries, if I'm squeezing lightly, I won't have a problem, but I won't feel my best. If I'm squeezing tightly, we're going to have a problem pretty quick. And so if all I do is I take my hands off my neck, my problems go away, right? So if we can remove the force, whether that's a tension force, a compression force, there's other forces where, because nerves have to slide, they ride along in sort of a container, like between muscles and fascia and things like that. So if the nerve is sliding and there's like a speed bump, so to speak, there's something going on, whereas it's sliding, it's hitting a hang up. So that's another source of problems for these nerves. Or if there's a disc, right? If there's a disc bulging, pushing on the nerve, we have to somehow not just unload the nerve, but then we have to work on some kind of a disc recovery so that the disc can recover. And they're not, there's not like a one size fits all for, especially when we have this disc and nerve combined issue, okay? Because some of the things that are really good for helping discs recover irritate the nerve. And some of the things that we do to, in a sense, to support the nerve aren't as supportive for the disc recovery. So this is, again, where some strategy does need to get involved, but the simple principle is we're unloading the force on the nerve. We're taking the force away from the nerve. Okay, and so this is, hopefully this is helpful. I hope this is helpful for you. Again, if you're finding this helpful, doesn't matter if you're listening now or you're catching the recording, go ahead and comment helpful. Help me, help you, right? Okay, so I talked about the red flags. We talked about the simple rule you need to follow. So if it's improving or getting worse, okay, that tells you what to need to pay attention to. And then also the rule of the unload. Okay, and then I kind of have already mentioned, so two of the biggest ways that I help people to prevent permanent nerve damage, the two biggest ways are to either unload that force, that compressive force that's acting. So we can have a compressive force at the neck, shoulder. So in the body, we can at the low back, we can at the glute. There's other spots where we can have a compressive force acting on a nerve. And then the other one is this tension problem that we talked about, where the nerve is irritated and it can't handle the tension, or we're postured in a way that's creating excessive tension. And so the simple answer to that is to position the body so that nerve, instead of having tension, has slack. Okay, so instead of the nerve being tugged on and having this tension, we position the body so the nerve has slack. And when the nerve has slack, guess what? Those blood vessels are going to be able to do their job. If it's tension, we may actually be limiting the blood flow, the ability of the circulatory system to keep up with the needs of this tissue, right? Nerves are tissues, and tissues can recover. Okay, tissues can recover. Discs are tissues too. They can recover. Okay, so hopefully that was all helpful for you. I think I'm running over my time that I wanted to be on, and I want to deliver the information that you need. If I didn't, then you could comment. You can actually say, hey, what about this, right? So I had somebody in the herniated disc group say, hey, you're going to be talking about carpal tunnel, ulnar nerve. So I did, in a sense, talk about ulnar nerve problems. We can have a compression problem that can start here. It can start here. It can actually be down at the elbow, right? We can actually have an issue at the wrist. So we can have that compression problem, and the ulnar nerve can also suffer. I'm spending all this time on the phone. I got my elbow bent. Okay, so I can be putting a little bit of tension, but also compression on that nerve. And so all we got to do is unload that. We can go back the other problem. Carrie had a great question. So if you're suffering on the right side, do you bend your head to the left? Great question. Okay, the simple answer is, if I'm having this problem, so this is my right side. So if I'm having a problem on my right side, and it's at the nerve root, okay, where the nerve exits the vertebra, okay, and either the nerve is swollen so it doesn't fit through the hole so good, or there's some issue with that, where there's some inflammation or something at that structure. If there's something there, then the way to open that foramen to give room for that nerve, one of the ways is, yes, to lean away. Now remember, if we lean away, we can be closing on this side. So most commonly, the safest way, low-hanging fruit, right? The safe and helpful thing. We want to have some flexion involved. We want to have some lean away. And then we can actually add, there's a third one we can add where we turn away just a little bit. So that gives me another little layer of opening here. And there's a caveat to that. If I do that, and either I start to feel problem over here, maybe I got to undo it a little bit, or I do that and I start to feel like a strong stretch over here, then I need to undo it a little bit. That's the best I can do here. Absolutely feel free to comment support, and I'll walk you through more specifically for you. We'll see what needs or solutions may fit best for you, or who you may need to be directed to, what type of professional might be the best option for you. Again, I hope you had a good time. If you did, comment good time. I usually say comment helpful, but comment good time, because I want this to be a good time, right? We're in pain, but pain doesn't mean it needs to take everything from us. Sometimes it feels like it does. I've been bedridden before. Okay, I've been bedridden for weeks, which means unable to stay upright for very long without getting dizzy, sweating, in intense pain, and or passing out. So I have been there. I'm not trying to be callous, but the pain is always a message, and as we receive that message and we notice that message, then pain is usually telling us we want to do something. We want to do something to be helpful. So hopefully you had a good time here today. And like I said, if you have any questions or something you want to know about, comment that in the comments. If you have questions, you can comment with your questions. I'll come back and check this. Make sure you tag me. And if you tag me, it works best if we're friends. So go ahead and friend me. If you just want to have a conversation, comment support. Thanks so much.